It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Friday, March 31st, and this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So what is happening on this wonderful and amazing Friday? We've got current news from around the world, the word study on the Wednesday message, and of course, Until the End segment on mental health with Daniel Baker. All right, everyone, how are you doing today? Yes, it is Friday, and I think we're always happy to see the weekend come around. And, you know, there really isn't a huge difference between the weekend and the weekdays, but I think it's just cool to have this, these couple days off, time to refresh, kind of renew our hearts and our minds. And I am thankful that all of you guys have made it this entire week together here on the Morning Star Drive. And keep liking, keep commenting. Want to hear how you guys are feeling, how you're doing. Some great comments going out there right now. I'm going to have a hard time picking the comments for next week, but some great comments out there. Really, really thankful for all of you that are just participating in the community, and I hope that this will be a place where many of us can come to be, come to a place where where there's more sanity, right? Where people are a little bit more objective and people a little bit more just trying to support each other in all the things that are going on around us. And, some of you might not feel comfortable to comment, but that's okay. You guys can just comment with a like. You just click the like button on SoundCloud or YouTube. Would love to just see that response from you guys also. And, you guys can also post song requests, questions, stories, all those other different things. Would love to hear from you guys, especially as we build this community, right? Just a quick reminder that tomorrow, every Saturday, we do have like music videos and such coming out. If you guys have any poems like Chris did from Australia, you can go ahead and send me those videos too. I'm very... I know that if we have more and more people contributing to the community, whether it's poetry, whether it's music, whether it's a testimony, any of these things, I know that everyone who puts something in is going to contribute to it. So I'm very, very hopeful. Like, I'm still looking forward to seeing if there's any comedians that will come out and do like a comedian set to make everyone laugh. Because that's something I really hope that all of us can just laugh and enjoy together, and even poke fun at the situation too, just to kind of easily get over it even more. Now, for myself, I try to keep my best to keep up with the news cycle over there in Korea. However, I do ignore a lot of it because some of it is repetitive. Some of them is just like the opinion of the writer, just saying, "Oh, this is what I feel," kind of thing. And in this current climate, we don't have to read every single thing. I've kind of grown a little bit immune to it, I think, like all the the news buzz going around and stuff. But it seems that just recently, today, I was just reading this one article, and it was talking about the second generation of Providence, and I just didn't really like it, how they portrayed the second gen as like all brainwashed from their parents and stuff like that too. And that's what kind of inspires me even more. I did the first part of, on Tuesday, Provi in the Media, I did section 1 of where does a term like brainwashing come from, and how like the CIA was a big part of that, bringing that word into focus in society and stuff like that too. And I thought to myself, after so much of the efforts from the media in Korea is just based a lot on brainwashing, and we just hear that terminology, and you hear it in the movies, you hear it in journals and articles and in the news and stuff. But what I wanted to do, just to make sure, it's Friday already, I wanted to continue with the second part of the brainwashing article. There's 5 chapters. I talked about the first one already. And do you guys remember the first chapter I talked about? I talked about how the CIA, yes, we're talking about the CIA in America, the Central Intelligence Agency. The CIA propaganda created the word and a theory of brainwashing to explain how, this is how interesting it is. The reason they came up with this theory is to explain how intelligent people might embrace absurd doctrines like communism. Right? And it's also, of course, to accuse, the Soviets and Chinese communists of sinister practices, depriving their victims of their free will, kind of thing, right? And it's very, very interesting just to see where the origins came from. And it was something that like society couldn't understand how someone would want to be communist. But then if you look at it, even today, there's lots of people who want to be socialists and communists too, and they think it's a better way than a democracy, right? And when you look at this, it's like, oh, it's interesting where people that do have their choice. In the past, they just couldn't figure out why intelligent and really smart people would want to go to communism, right? And then they came up with brainwashing, and they put all this propaganda out, right? So what I want to talk to you about is that second chapter, which is kind of crazy because there came a certain point. Like if you guys read this article, I remember it's already in the description below. But the CIA came up with this propaganda. But crazy enough, they believed in their own propaganda, and then they tried to replicate the communist brainwashing in their own experiments, right? And if you look, you can find this in the Freedom of Information Act. But there was a project called the MK Ultra project, right? So it was like a CIA secret brainwashing project, and it was codenamed MK Ultra, right? And it was only mentioned in a handful of publications critical of the US government and often dismissed as supporting conspiracy theories. But later, the CIA became the defendant in several lawsuits filed by volunteers who had suffered permanent damages in the MK Ultra experiments and their relatives. The most important of which resulted in a 1988 settlement. And through the lawsuit, several key documents became public, right? So it's quite interesting to see, what is this MK Ultra project, right? So it's very, very interesting what the CIA did, okay? So they did like brainwashing experiments. And the CIA had secured like cooperation of several leading American universities and scholars who were on the cusp of advanced research on behavioral sciences, right? And not all of them were fully aware of the ultimate aims of the project, and the CIA hid under three foundations that were allegedly private. So here's the first results. The first results were not encouraging of this MK Ultra project, right? Each research team adopted one or more specific methods like hallucinogenic drugs, psychotropic medications administered in higher than normal doses, sensorial deprivation, repeated electroshock treatments, lobotomy, and other forms of psychosurgery and hypnosis. Now, some of the volunteers were prison inmates, others were psychiatric patients of the researchers or homeless citizens who had been promised a significant amount of cash. Now, the CIA project took a quality leap when there was a distinguished Scottish psychiatrist who was professor of psychiatry at McGill University in Montreal, which is Canada. His name was Donald Ewan Cameron. Cameron will later become president of the APA, the American Psychiatric Association, and found the World Psychiatric Association. And in a protracted series of experiments on his Canadian patients, he combined many of the techniques that had formerly been tested separately. And the CIA also were very happy because he's Canadian, right? So it circumvents tons of legal restrictions forbidding such experiments in the United States, right? So what are the two things that he experimented on the most? So Cameron based his experiments on two-stage theory. In the first stage, he called de-patterning, okay? And he set out to eliminate the subject's existing ideas, habits, and attachments, generating a sort of like selective amnesia, right? So the outcome of this stage, in the words of a CIA executive, was the creation of a vegetable. Not an especially useful subject for counter-espionage purposes, but then after he made them into a vegetable, he moved to the second stage that he called psychic driving, right? In which the subject was reconditioned to adopt new permanent behavioral models and ideas. Now, in fact, Cameron was even too successful in creating vegetables. So that first stage, he was very, very successful in creating these vegetables. And some of the techniques he used included electroshock treatments that were from 20 to 40 times stronger than the average doses administered in psychiatric hospitals. And he gave them to the patients 3 times a day for several days. And he also administered medication to induce sleep deprivation for periods of like 15 to 65 days. So he gave his patients cocktails of psychotropic drugs and hallucinogens in quantities much higher than in their normal recreational use. And not surprisingly, as court cases were to reveal in later years, most of the patients succumbed to mental and other illnesses and never recovered, and some died. So that first stage was just incredibly effective, making them into a vegetable, right? Now, the passage from de-patterning to psychic driving, however, never succeeded, right? So which means going after making them a vegetable, he wants to insert ideas into them, right? Or brainwash them. But they never succeeded. So Cameron recorded on tape his own instructions as well as phrases spoken by the patient. The vegetable-like patients produced by the depatterning were compelled to listen to tapes up to 16 hours a day. And sometimes microphones were inserted in football helmets that patients could not remove. Microphones were also hidden under their pillows so they could continue to listen to the tapes even in their sleep. But none of it worked. In fact, Cameron's experiments did prove something. They proved that brainwashing a victim into changing her fundamental ideas or orientation was not possible. Having reached the same conclusion in 1963, the CIA ended the MKUltra project, including the part that Cameron had conducted. And to use its own fortunate metaphor, the CIA learned that it might be possible to wash the brain until it loses its color and becomes white, as the patient is reduced to the sad state of a human wreck. But recoloring it with new ideas is not impossible. So that's kind of like the part 2. And the part 3 will do that starting next week on brainwashing. But it's very interesting, as you can see, how brainwashing and that propaganda actually propped up was because of the CIA. And it was because it was to go against communism. And one of the things that the government couldn't understand is how intelligent and smart people who didn't have any problems with their brains could want to be a communist. And their theory was, oh, maybe it's brainwashing. And they put all that propaganda out of the news from the CIA, right? And then on top of that, they started doing experiments to see if they can really, really brainwash people. And the answer was, with all the experiments done, you could get rid of all the stuff in people's brain, but you couldn't put new things in there. Like the brainwashing, that program came out to show that it is impossible to actually brainwash someone, right? And I think that's something that's really important for us to understand when it comes to brainwashing, right? To brainwash someone to think and believe in a certain way. But when you look at all the studies behind it, you'll see that it doesn't really hold, right? And that's why it's very interesting how countries or judicial systems will still allow or accept brainwashing as an actual real defense, right? Like there could be very, 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 very few cases that might have something subjective to it, right? Like oh, maybe, but there's something else on top of this, right? But what we see so far from all the studies, like actual empirical, evidence and studies, it's shown that it doesn't really work. It's impossible to do that actually, right? So next week we'll go into the 3rd chapter of this article, and it's going to be on how brainwashing theories were applied to religion, right? And that's going to be very, very interesting because that kind of gets into our area too. But I do think it's going to be something very, very interesting for all of us to look at also, right? So yeah, I just, the reason, like I said, the reason I'm bringing this up is I just find it really sad that the only thing that like the media and journalists can come up with is brainwashing, where you can do just a little bit of research on it or go to people in the field of psychology, psychiatry, sociology, and they look at it and say, no, it's not a real thing. Like brainwashing is not something where you can say that's a real thing, right? Like, one of the things that that we kind of find really weird and doesn't hold true from that I would say would be something that's a point of concern is if they, like let's just say that they had the story from that girl from Hong Kong and then she said that she was brainwashed so she couldn't resist or whatever it was. But if she really was that brainwashed, then one of the points that were made by the defense is, well then, but she was already off with her own boyfriend in May of 2021. So during that time that she's saying these things are happening, she said she was brainwashed, but yet she has the free will. She wasn't afraid or anything else to go out and get her own boyfriend during that time in May, right? So some of the things are a little bit doesn't really fit. And the whole point I'm making right now is more so about this brainwashing defense or something that's saying that, it was impossible to resist because like, I don't know if you guys know me. I am probably one of the people that does not follow the rules. You guys know me, right? I don't follow rules. And in Providence, too, some things that I disagree with, I'll disagree in the open. To my detriment, I'll disagree, right? Where it's not even normal. I'm just like, nah, that doesn't make sense. I don't agree with this kind of thing. And it's just kind of, imagine if it was all real brainwashing. I'd be like, yes, do anything you please with my brain, and you can say anything, and I will believe. Like, no, I was like, all of us have our free will, right? And a lot of us, if we were all brainwashed, I think we'd have closer to 100% of people at pre-dawn. If there really was brainwashing, I think we'd have close to 100% at pre-dawn, close to 100% at Sunday service, at Wednesday service. And if you guys take a look right now, do you guys have close to 100% coming to pre-dawn and like all the services? And the answer is absolutely not, right? And this is kind of a sad thing, but also it's a true thing. Is like if we were really, had no choice, I do think we would have way more people at our services, especially pre-dawn. That's what we wouldn't be struggling to help people, and we wouldn't be struggling so much managing taking care of so many people because they're struggling so much if there was brainwashing. Don't you think? Like, even for me, that's why for me, I'm just like, there's just too much to go against it for me. Just like, gosh, I wish people, if I'm going to be super, like, if I had it my way in this trial, I would be calling up expert witnesses from other countries to come into the court of law talking about how is brainwashing something really that real in the first place. That's what I would do, right? Because if brainwashing is their thing, just got to disprove it, right? And, we have all this information and research that is out there. We just got to get people to come in and become expert witnesses and say, well, if you take a look at the real research, there's not really such a thing as it, right? So that would, that's just kind of my thoughts. Of course, it's not going to happen in that way because I don't know how the whole system runs anyways. But yeah, it's quite interesting for me just to see how far things go. And like, I have a good friend who's an actor. He came out on the news the other day, and it's really sad. Like, like they want people to prove that they are no longer in Providence. Like, rip up this picture and do this or this. And I think it's quite sad. I really do, that people are asking for proof. Like, I don't even understand why they're trying to out people. It makes no sense to me. Like, oh my gosh, I left about 20 years ago. Oh, well then if you really did, I want you to curse this person. I'm just kind of like, it's so, like, even that doesn't prove anything, because someone can curse and not be, and not be telling the truth about it. Someone can rip up a picture and it's just a picture. You know what I mean? So I'm really, 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 it's kind of sad to see the state of humanity at this level. And I hope it never gets like that to us, right? Like, someone says, well, whose side are you on? Well, if you're really on our side, then I want you to curse this person's name. Like, come on. Like, that's taking it so far. Like, I find that, I hope it never gets to that. Yeah, because that's just ridiculous. Like, I think that's something where no one has to go that far. But you know what? I am looking forward to an amazing weekend. This is a very good segue, by the way. Maybe I'm working on my comedy, right? Besides that, I'm looking forward to this weekend to have a really, really good time. You know what? I might, if I get stressed enough, I just might have to go watch John Wick 4 again and get that therapy of massive killings in my head, so that I can have that therapy there, right? But I hope, I know some of you guys went out to watch John Wick 4 also. There's another one that I really want. There's another one coming out. Oh, there's a one I want to watch called Air, I think. That's the one when the Nike took Michael Jordan on to bring on, to get the Air Jordans and stuff. That one looks kind of cool because I'm a total sports fanatic. So if I can, that might be a great movie to watch. And that's, once again, that's Ben Affleck and Matt Damon coming together for a movie. But I hope that one would be, I think that would be kind of cool to watch. But, it's not enough killing in there. I need some therapy. I'm going to go watch John Wick 4 again if I have to. Either way. So let's get into some music from some member artists from around the world. And today we're going to start off with brand new mother. It's Renee Lai over there in Taiwan. I get to see her and little Mikey. and on her Instagram, but so adorable and cute. And this song is from The Greatest Showman soundtrack, This Is Me. And then we'll have Zeniac from PMA in Korea with Plutonium. And then we'll end things off with the Rapture Collective from Australia with My ABCs, and that's Julius featuring Sapphire.
I'm not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken part. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When sharp words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna stand flat, gonna draw them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come, and I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me. Another round of bullets hits my skin. We're far away, 'cause today I won't let the shame sink in. We're blasting through the barricades and bringing change for the sun. Yeah, that's what we become. Won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we're glorious. Gonna stand flat, gonna draw them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come, and I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Come on, this is me. I know that I deserve your love. There's nothing I'm not worthy of. When sharp words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna stand flat, gonna draw them out. This is brave, this is bruised, this is who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. Look out, 'cause here I come. I'm marching on, marching, marching on. No apologies. This is me. Gonna stand flat, gonna draw them out. Oh, this is me. 잿빛에 부유하던 소년의 말 끝내 노래하는 목소리는 떠나보내지 못했지만 멀어져가는 태양의 적색변이 어쩌면 그건 빛이 흘리는 비가 내 안에 널 보내어 무너진 열을 모아 얼음 조각에 스미어 내 마음을 열어보여 결국 난 이렇게 희미한 존재이지만 너 완성에게 도박 곁에서 한결같이 너를 떠올릴게 언젠가 사라지더라도 이는 너의 곁에 남아 하염없이 손을 뻗어 얼어버린 눈물이 녹이게 뒤돌아보면 안 된다고 기도했던 너의 기억에 남아 다시 한번 불을 지펴 잃어버린 진실을 찾아 나설게 머나먼 세상까지 너를 두고 떠나야 했던 그날의 향기가 지금도 나를 파고들어진 실수도 없을 만큼 괴롭긴 한데 언젠가 돌아가면 오랜 기억 더듬어 내가 있던 자리에 네가 되어 내릴게 땅이 열리기를 가자 미련하고 위대한 발걸음으로 더 아픈 이별이라도 나는 떠나야 했다
If you felt the love of God, let me hear you say A for amen. If you've been blessed in your life, I want to hear you say B for blessed. If you've been chosen out of love, let me hear you say C because I'm chosen. Let's never forget it. The more we know him, the more we come to love him. So I just want to get to know him like I know my ABCs. From Alpha to Omega, you've been there for me. For the beauty of the love that you give to me. For sending Christ down to earth just to rescue me. That's why I wanna know you like I know my ABCs. You raised me up, miniaturized ambition, masterpiece. You built me up, broken pieces till I found my peace. It's clear to me that you're the one and only one for me. That's why I wanna get to know you like I know my ABCs. Yeah. I just wanna get to know you like I know my ABCs. When I listen to your word, I hear my spirit sing. I can feel my soul lifted up on eagle's wings. My purpose and meaning, the reason I'm living is clear for me to see. I'm mesmerized, energized, let me testify.
When I see the sun shining, it feels like you're smiling. The summer rays of your love, I feel it burning in my heart. When I call on my G-O-D, I know he'll always be there for me. Cause he got me like 1, 2, 3. No more need to have fear in me. My Lord gave me that victory. Can't forget it like 3, 1, 6. Like a heavenly symphony. I'm gonna praise him like A, B, C.
From Alpha to Omega, you've been there for me. For the beauty of the love that you give to me. For sending Christ down to earth just to rescue me. That's why I wanna know you like I know my ABCs. I used to be ambivalent, a little bit indifferent to your will, yet you love me anyway. I know that truly made the difference. You made us in your image, yet we're so distant. Thank the Lord of my soul, he made a huge difference. Yeah. I just wanna get to know you like I know my ABCs. Yeah. God, please let me get to know you. I gotta know you like I know my ABCs.
When I see the sun is shining, it feels like you're smiling. The summer rays of your love.
When I call my G-O-D, I know He there for me. 'Cause He got me like 1, 2, 3. No more need to have fear in me. My God gave me that victory. Now I get it like 3, 1, 6. Like a heavenly symphony. I'm gonna praise Him like ABC.
The spiritual love of God, there's nothing quite like it. A love that does more than just moving your heart for a while. A love that renews the mind, heals the blind, and goes beyond time.
And what a great song. That is that brand new track over there from Rapture Collective. That's Julius and Sapphire with the song My ABCs. We played it 3 times this week. Hope you guys got used to it and hope you guys are enjoying it too. Before that, we had Zeniac from PMA in Korea with Plutonium, and that features the day. That's Renee live from Taiwan with This Is Me. All right. So let's get into some news going on around the world. And as brides of this history, understanding the power of our prayers, let's make sure we know what's going on in the world so we can pray and repent for the world. As I talked about this yesterday, it's Taiwan's President Tsai arrives in the U.S. to warnings from China of serious confrontation. Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen has arrived in New York to criticism from China, which warned the U.S. of serious repercussions. Ms. Tsai is transiting through the U.S. on her way to Central America, but she may meet with U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy on her return leg. China has condemned any such meeting and says if it goes ahead, it could lead to a serious confrontation. In response, the U.S. has said Beijing should not overreact to Ms. Tsai's trip. The U.S. hopes to see a normal, uneventful transit. The White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby said on Wednesday, noting that this is Ms. Tsai's 7th transit through the U.S. during her time as Taiwan's leader, and this will be the 29th U.S. transit by a sitting president in Taiwan since the first in 1994. Ms. Tsai flew into New York on Wednesday, where she was greeted by competing crowds of protesters and supporters outside her hotel, and she is due to fly to Guatemala and Belize this week in a visit to shore up alliances in Central America. Before returning through Los Angeles, where a meeting with the senior U.S. political leader could take place, U.S. outlets have reported. In other news, Pope Francis is in the hospital with respiratory infection. Pope Francis has been admitted to hospital with a respiratory infection after experiencing difficulty breathing in recent days and will remain in the Rome hospital for several days of treatment, the Vatican said. The 86-year-old pontiff's schedule for tomorrow and Friday has been canceled. The Italian news agency ANSA reported, adding that the Pope had already had a chest CT scan and that his blood saturation levels were fine. No heart problems had been detected. Overall, the situation should not be of particular concern, medical sources were telling the ANSA. Last but not least, let's go to U.S. and Russia. And this has to do with the START treaty, which has to do with the nuclear, sharing of information of nuclear arms. Right, so Russia is now will stop sending nuclear arms info to the U.S. Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said there will be no notifications at all with Washington as the U.S. also stops sharing data on its nuclear weapons with Moscow. Russia will no longer share detailed information on its nuclear weapons with the United States as outlined in the new START treaty, a senior official in Moscow has said. As Russia's military began drills with its Yars ICBM launchers in Siberia, while fighting in Ukraine rages and tensions with the U.S. mounts. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov told Russian news agencies on Wednesday that Moscow had halted all information exchanges with Washington after suspending its participation in the new START nuclear arms treaty last month. The U.S. said on Tuesday it would cease providing Moscow with detailed data on its nuclear weapon stockpiles in response to Russia's suspension of participation in New START. Russia has not been in full compliance and refused to share data, which we agreed in New START to share biannually. And that's from John Kirby, the U.S. National Security Council spokesperson. Since they have refused to be in compliance, we have decided to likewise not share that data. A semi-annual exchange of information between Russia and the U.S. on such issues as their number of nuclear warheads and nuclear-capable bombers on certain bases had been an important measure of the New START treaty. Last month, Putin suspended Russia's participation in the treaty, saying Moscow could not accept U.S. inspection of its nuclear sites under the agreement when Washington and its NATO allies have openly declared Moscow's defeat in Ukraine as their goal. Moscow emphasized that it had not withdrawn from the START Pact altogether and would continue to respect the caps on nuclear weapons the treaty sets. Russia's foreign ministry had also said that Moscow would keep notifying the U.S. about planned test launches of its ballistic missiles, a key agreement between Washington and Moscow. So, yeah, it sounds kind of scary not knowing what's on the other side, but it's something that is, it's politics. We have no idea what's going on behind the scenes, but we have to be the ones that pray behind the scenes by asking God to resolve all these situations. All right? So let's go into some sporting news. In the NBA, it's the Sacramento Kings clinching their first playoff berth since 2006. So that's 16 years, okay? So when you think about this, if you look at the NFL, the NHL, Major League Baseball, and the NBA, the top 4 leagues in the U.S., they are the number one franchise, the longest without getting to the playoffs, which is 16 years, right? So finally, congratulations to them. The LA Lakers won their 38th game, and now they are sitting at 500. They outscored the Bulls 107-72, and the win brought the Lakers to 38-38 and put them in number 8 in the Western Conference standings. Also, Phoenix Suns star Kevin Durant returns, scores 16 points in his home debut, and the Suns are now 4-0 with Durant in the lineup. And the Timberwolves, they defeated the Timberwolves, who had a 4-game winning streak snapped. In soccer news, Indonesia, our neighbors over here, Indonesia is stripped of hosting Under-20 World Cup by FIFA. Now, why did this happen? Well, what happened was there's this one area, Bali, where they have their vacations, right? That's a vacation island over there in Indonesia. Bali refused to host Israel's team. So the loss of hosting rights will be a big setback in Indonesia because football is huge and massive in Indonesia. And despite the lack of international success since qualifying for the 1938 World Cup, that one area, Bali, is mainly Hindu, and they refuse to host Israel, and that's why FIFA is taking that away from them. So it's pretty sad. That's a lot of economy that they could have benefited from too. In Major League Baseball, big CBA, the first CBA of its kind for minor leaguers, right? So they struck a tentative deal Wednesday on the first collective bargaining agreement between the sides that will pay more than double each person's pay. And the deal will last for about 5 years and comes after a rapid and successful effort last year by minor leaguers to unionize under the umbrella of the Major League Baseball Players Association and follows previous gains in housing and pay. The pay increases at each level are significant, according to sources, and will pay players in spring training as well as the offseason outside of a dead period between the Thursday before Thanksgiving and New Year's Day. So that's a big congratulations to them, because some of them were getting paid like less than $10,000 a year, which is pretty crazy, but more than doubling all of them is great news for a lot of them who have their own families and such too. All right. Either way, there it is, guys. That is the top 3 news in sports and top 3 news around the world. Hope it's something that helps you guys out in your time of prayer. But you know what that means. It is the golden time. And yes, it is the golden time, a time of praise and worship to the Holy Trinity. Hope all of you guys are looking forward to giving glory to God and the Holy Spirit. So, what are we going to praise and worship today? We're going to start off with The Lord is the Answer, and then an oldie, Tower of Love, and we'll end things off with The Meaning of Thanksgiving. So, as one body of the Morning Star Drive, let's spend this time giving praise, honor, and glory to the Holy Trinity.
celebrate. Now that we've raptured, we'll rejoice for 1,000 years. 'Cause our Lord's with us today. He's with us now, so let's live without regrets. Just as you loved him, just as you ran, putting everything on the line. People of this history, oh my brothers, you have returned. You people who have received the Holy Spirit's fire, when you heard heaven's word of life, you who said amen, you who set your minds, you who told him that you would never leave. Now the Lord sets us ablaze. Now heaven's love burns ever stronger inside our hearts. Our Lord's enraptured by the love our God is showing right now. Lord, you're eternal. Oh Lord, we miss you so much. You through the word raptured now. You who receive fire through the working of the Spirit. You made up your mind that you would remain, that you would go until the end with him. As you preach this fiery word to all the world, preaching with the Lord's burning heart. How are you living? What's your position in front of heaven now? Lord, you're eternal. We're your lovers, your brides. As you preach this fiery word to all the world, preaching with the Lord's burning heart. How are you living? What's your position in front of heaven now? Lord, you're eternal. We are your lovers, your brides. For 1,000 years we'll rejoice. Our love will never end. Our love will never end. Our love will never end. Who saved me from certain death and gave me eternal life. Oh, how can it be? You who created everything, all the heavens and the earth, made it all for me. You are worthy to receive as your bride for eternity.
And what an amazing song that is, The Meaning of Thanksgiving. Before that, Tower of Love, and that first song is The Lord is the Answer. All right, so now that our hearts are made ready through that time of praise and worship, let's get into today's word study. And as we do on every Friday, we go over the Wednesday message. And of course, great job by all the head leaders, all the leaders that are giving and delivering the Wednesday message. And it's something that God doesn't look at lightly. That's such a big thing to do, to preach the message from the pulpit. And I hope it's something that all of us can recognize too, as we continue to pray for our leaders, continue to encourage them and help them so that they can give even better sermons every single time. So, it was kind of a review of the Sunday message, but there was a couple points that I really enjoyed. And I think one of the first intros that I got was, what is righteousness? Of course, we talked, that's from the Sunday message. And it's one of the hardest parts that people have to figure out is to understand what is morally right. It really depends from, what source you're basing your morality on, right? Like every country has different moralities, right? Some countries are, like I'm here in Malaysia, it's a Islamic state. Other countries could be Hindu states. Other countries could be Christian states. Other countries, may not have any religion, right? And you'd be like, well, how do we know if we want to be righteous people, and to be righteous, we have to be morally right? Whose law should we decide from? And this is one of the biggest things why people believe in religion, right? One of the biggest reasons why we believe in a greater God, because if it was based on human standards and human laws, then it would vary from person to person, right? We need to look at something that's an absolute standard of righteousness, right? Not coming from human beings, but from God who is perfect. And this is why, we are believing in this God of the Bible, right? And we see what is morally correct and incorrect. And yes, as the world becomes more and more humanistic, they start to accept things that are very, very different from the words of God. And they might come and persecute us and say, how dare you not give this person the right just because your Bible says this? And the answer is, well, actually, we have every right, especially if you're in a country with religious freedom. We have every right to believe in something that comes from our spiritual book, because that's religious freedom, right? And it's something that we have to understand. It's an actual, for countries that you're living in that does have religious freedom, it shouldn't be an issue. It really shouldn't, but it's become, as society becomes more and more humanistic, we start thinking according to morality, according to human beings' thoughts, right? And that changes over time, where God's thoughts do not change, right? So here is one thing that I thought was a very, very good verse that I was listening to is Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6, right? And this talks about the importance of faith itself, right? And if you look at Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6, I like this verse. It says, without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him, right? And, this is one of the first things that we have to understand is faith is necessary, because there is, we don't have a guarantee of everything. Like even like the existence of God, that requires us to have faith. And without that faith, just to believe that God exists, it is impossible to please God. And I think that's one thing that if people become too physical, then you want 100% proof of everything. Well, I'm going to wait until there's 100% proof. And the answer is you're not going to get 100% proof in everything. If you need 100% proof in everything, then faith is unnecessary, but the world requires faith. Faith, religious faith requires faith. We must believe the existence of God and that God will reward those that seek. And that's a huge thing that you can't take the faith out of the equation and just say, well, I'm going to wait till all the evidence comes out, and then once all the evidence comes out, then I'll believe. And the answer is you'll never get it. There's going to be there's going to be a chance that you may never get the evidence that you're looking for, which means that imagine you never get the evidence, which means you'll never have faith. You'll never believe because like I'm only on this person's side because I'm just waiting for the evidence to come out. And once it's 100%, then I'll believe or I won't believe. And you've basically taken faith out of the equation completely. It is impossible to please God without faith. Impossible, right? And we have to realize that like I said, I've said this many times before, is you can't turn this into all legal matter. This is a faith matter, right? Of believing, a faith matter, right? That's, when it comes down to it, like, imagine people saying the exact same thing at the time of Jesus. Well, you know what? Jesus is true and Jesus is right and I have absolute faith in him, but, let's just wait till the end of the trial and see what happens. That's not faith. That's waiting for something to prove whether you're right or wrong, but there's some things that you may never be able to prove, right? Like, let me give an example. In the end, you may never get the proof. Why? Because in the end, it's a he said, she said. No one was there except them and God. Truth, right? That's possible. That's so possible. That you may never get the 100%. You may never get it. So does that mean you'll never have faith and you'll just always be in the middle forever, right? And it's the same thing, right? We have to realize that, like Hebrews 11:6, it is impossible to please God without faith. Like, what is a faith? Faith is not like blind. Faith is you have enough information for you to believe until now. You've seen enough. You've heard enough. To this point, you're like, yeah, there is God. I've experienced him in my prayer. I've experienced him answering my prayers. I've experienced him here. I've experienced him there. Yep, there is God. And it's enough for me, right? Oh, is this enough? Have you received enough to believe that this is the history of God? To have faith in this history, that this is the history of God? And if you had enough, and then all of a sudden this thing pops up, this situation we're in right now pops up, does that mean all of a sudden it's not enough? You know what I mean? So it's something that we have to think about very, very carefully. When you look at, Abraham was the father of faith, and he believed in a position like, it's like, how did you believe that, Abraham? He believed in God. He was an idol worshiper, then believed in God, believed in God's promise, left his family. He believed that he would have like descendants as many as the stars in the sky, sacrificed it. He had absolute faith. It's the times when it's hard to believe. Like, think about Abraham, how hard it was to believe that he's going to have a child at 100. How hard it's to believe that before that he even had his child, God's like, yeah, you'll have descendants as numerous as stars in the sky and the sands on the seashore. Oh yeah, by the way, I want you to leave your family. Yeah, that's hard. That's hard to believe. Can you imagine the doubt that could be in your mind? How much you would shake with the questions? You'd be like, but God, really? You want me to leave my father? Really? And we need to remember too, there are many times where God tells us what to do, but he doesn't explain everything from the beginning, right? There's not enough time. If he explains everything, then what's going to happen? Two problems happen. Number one is some things have to be done right away. So if you have to explain everything, you might not get it done at the right time. And the second thing is it totally absolves faith from the issue. Where God's like, do you trust me? Like, can you imagine if you have a really like a close friend or a best friend, and every time you need to explain why your friend needs to trust you, wouldn't that be weird? Like that, you'd be like, I'd be like, this guy's not my best friend. He keeps asking me why I would have to trust him every single time. We gotta remember that God doesn't explain everything from the beginning. We trust because of all the other experiences we've had in life that God is on our side. God wants the best to happen to us. Doesn't have to explain everything. Just as I hope that if I have a best friend, I don't need to explain everything for them to trust me. But I do believe that God eventually will teach us and tell us what it's all about. Abraham, you got to understand how great Abraham was. Like that, why is he the father of faith? He was even willing to sacrifice his son, which is nuts. And if we realize even right now, look at this time period we're living in right now, remember all the promises God gave to this time period and all the promises that were fulfilled from the churches, the buildings that we bought, the conditions that were set by the man of mission, the promises we've gotten through the word. And what's the promise we're all waiting for? It's the end, the blessings that come at the end of 2023. Believe in the promise. Just like Abraham believed in something he had no right to believe. He had no right to have faith in it. There's nothing God showed him by that point. And this is why right now it's a time to have faith like Abraham. Take action until the end, right? And we will become the seeds that will be planted for God's next stage in history. We may not see everything that develops and happens, but we're going to be the seeds of God's next stage in history. We will. There's so much going on, right? Behind the scenes that God doesn't show us, God doesn't tell us, and he doesn't have to, because he's shown us enough for us to have that faith in him. And I hope that's something that all of us will realize that much more deeply too. Like that was something that I was like, oh, that's such a powerful part in the Sunday message. Of course, now the righteousness for this time period is not only just believing in the Holy Trinity and Jesus, Jesus came back again in spirit. So we believe in that Jesus, the Messiah, has come back in spirit. But he's also taking action. We have to take action, believing in the word preached by the man of mission, right? And that's the extra part. Before Jesus came, it was believe in God, right? Believe in God, believe in God, believe in God, believe in God, right? And then when the New Testament came along, it was believe in God and Jesus, right? Which is the body of the Holy Trinity. So there was added on it with the man of mission of the time period in the New Testament time. Then Jesus dies and his body is gone and he comes back in spirit, returns a second coming of his spirit, right? Remember, that's one of the biggest doctrines that we teach differently is that Jesus comes back in spirit, not in body. But he does come back in body using another person. And that's why, once again, with this complete testament time, it is also not just believing in Jesus who returned, but also the one that he uses. And it's only those that take action believing in the word preached by the man of mission, right? Believing in them, then we receive authority of brides, become counterparts of love, and we receive the promises of this new time period, right? Why is there always a new body? Well, because God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in the spirit and truth. The only way to carry out the plan in the physical realm, you need a physical body, right? And if you think about it, God and the Holy Trinity can't just use anyone either. There has to be someone at that level, someone raised and trained at that level, someone who they can work with all the time. Jesus is not going to just pick any random like schmo off the street. He may pick someone randomly, but he also has to pick someone and train them so that they reach that level. So I hope that's something that we all understand too when it comes to this week's Sunday message. There's no random person just picked out of nowhere. The person's got to have faith in Jesus. The person's got to believe and love with all their heart. That person's got to be at that level. And this last thing I'll point out is, we're constantly reminded, don't flow into physical love. And my personal feeling, I'm not sure about you guys, is I think the vast majority of us have never really looked to physical love. I just don't ever remember going into physical love. I just remembered all the time it's about spiritual love, spiritual love, spiritual. I've just never heard it go into physical love before. That's myself. So some of you might say, oh, but I heard something like that. But did you remember that as the message for all of the general audience? And the answer was no way. There was never a physical love thing. I think that's why the vast majority don't have this issue or this problem. We don't. And if you do, I'd be interested in where'd you get that from? So much over the last 15, especially even during the 10 years where Sunstein was gone, I never remembered it. It was always about, oh, you don't see him in body, so it's all spiritual. God is spirit, so we got to do it in spirit. God wants what type of love? Well, God is not physical, so we can't have physical. It's like, that's like a very basic point that I remember. So, yeah, I've just never, I think the vast majority has never been caught up in physical love. Have you guys? Like trying to do physical love? I don't think so. And that's why for me, it's very, very odd, right? To keep hearing, hey guys, don't go to physical love. And I'm like, I don't ever remember going towards that. I just don't. But yeah, this is a great message this week. The righteous shall live by faith, right? And I hope that, faith is never something that we wipe out of the equation. Faith is something that we've always been taught, right? And you need it 100%. You're never going to get 100% of some type of proof, right? That, oh, this is, I have 100% proof that God exists. No one has that. No one has that. And, these people who, like even talking about like, oh, I believe, like you could believe it. Like, you can believe that there is something, you can believe that something happened with these people accusing. You can believe it. But you couldn't give me 100% proof you did, that it happened, because you weren't there. You never saw it. You're just believing because you've heard the evidence. You think it's enough. Where you'll have another majority of another big chunk of people who've heard the evidence and say, well, I don't think it's enough. And then people get mad at each other like, what? How dare you? How dare you say I'm lying? And the answer is, well, it's not so much we're saying someone is lying. We're just saying there's not enough evidence. Right? And that's something that, we're going to be, this is going to be a faith issue for a long time. That's the whole issue in the former faith, Christianity. That's the issue. The issue is always about faith. That's it. Everything else, you can say whatever you want, but I have faith. I have faith in Jesus. I have faith in Jesus. And that's why, because of that faith, it's lasted for the last 2,000 years. The righteous, how do we live, guys? The righteous shall live by faith. All right? So there it is, guys. That's the word study for the Wednesday message. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. If you have any comments, go ahead, leave them below. Would love to hear what you guys think about the Wednesday word study. If you have anything to add, go ahead. Excuse me. Go ahead and add it there too. Okay? So let's get into the song of choice for today. And today's song of choice comes from Kirk Franklin and Maverick City. Love this song, a brand new song that I just heard recently too. This song is called Fear Is Not My Future.
Let him turn it in your favor. Watch him work it for your good. 'Cause he's not done with what he started. He's not done until it's good. So let him turn it in your favor. Watch him work it for your good, yeah. 'Cause he's not done with what he started. He's not done until it's good. So hello peace, hello joy, hello love, hello strength, hello hope. It's a new horizon. Hello peace, hello joy, hello love, hello strength, hello hope. It's a new horizon. If you're ready for a breakthrough, you can open up and just receive what he's pouring out
sun is rising, can you see it?
Fear is not my future, you are. Sickness is not my story, you are.
You are,
You are.
you are,
Heartbreak's not my home, you are.
you are,
You are.
you are.
Death is not the end, Jesus, you are. You are. Fear is not my future, you are.
You are,
You are.
sing it.
Sickness is not my story.
It won't be your story.
You are.
You are.
You are.
Heartbreak is not my home.
Heartbreak's not my home. You are.
You are.
You are.
Death is not the
Death is not
Jesus. You are.
You are.
You are.
You are.
Hello.
Hello,
Peace. Hey.
hello,
Hey.
joy.
Hey.
Hello, love.
It's a new day.
Hello, strength.
Hey.
Hello, it's a new horizon.
His mercies are new. Hello.
Hello, peace. Hello, joy. Hello, love.
Hey.
Hello, strength. Hello, hope. Yeah, fear is not my future. You are.
You are.
You are.
Sickness is not my story.
This is not my story. You are.
It's Jesus.
You are.
Heartbreak is not my
Heartbreak's
home.
not
I can't
my
stay here
home.
too long.
You are.
You are.
You are.
Death, it is not the end.
Death is
'Cause he
not
defeated
the
death and the grave.
You are.
You are.
You are.
He's Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. He's Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end.
Goodbye fear, goodbye guilt, goodbye shame,
Bye, 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 bye.
goodbye pain, goodbye grave. It's a new horizon.
Yeah.
Goodbye fear,
Bye-bye.
goodbye guilt,
Bye-bye.
goodbye shame, goodbye pain, goodbye grave. It's a new horizon.
New horizon.
It's a new horizon. Mm. It's a new horizon. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a new horizon. Let the light on in.
Yeah.
It's a new horizon. Let the light in. Let the light on in. It's a new horizon. Let the light in. Let the light on in. It's a new horizon. Let the light in. Let the light on in. It's a new horizon. It's a new horizon. It's a new horizon. It's a new horizon.
It's the morning time now, where his mercies are new. It's the morning time now, where the weeping has to end. It's the morning time now.
Wake up, wake up.
Get up, get up. It's the morning time now.
Wake up, wake up.
Joy is coming in the morning. That's right now. It's the morning time now. When you open your eyes of your understanding, it's morning.
It's morning,
It's morning right now.
morning.
You don't have to wait on the clock. It's morning right now. Right now. Right now. Right now.
Stop morning. It's the morning time.
Yeah. It's a new rise.
Stop mourning, 'cause it's the morning time. Yeah, joy is coming, stop mourning. It's the morning time.
He's risen.
Stop mourning, 'cause it's the morning time. Let the light on in. Let the light in. Let the light on in.
And there it is. That is Fear Is Not My Future. That is Kirk Franklin and Maverick City. Hope you guys really, really enjoyed that song. So let's get into the final segment for today and for the entire week. Yes, every single Friday we have it. It is Until the End Mental Health Podcast. And Daniel doing an amazing job as an SS leader over there in Korea. And I love this comment talking about how the SS are really, really strong and they're doing well over there too. He is second gen. And I hope that you guys can all really, really encourage him. Write a bunch of comments for him too. He's doing such a great job, everyone. This is Daniel Baker over there in Korea with Until the End.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Do It Until the End podcast. Now I am back from my vacation and I'm finally recharged to do the things that I need to do. Well, during this vacation, it really gave me time to really organize my thoughts. You know, a lot of trips to Warmindong and a lot of fishing trips and much needed talks with my family really helped me out. Now today, we are just going to have a short conversation about how we could go until the end and finish 2023 strong. Now, after processing what's happening with this whole situation, during the break, I was realizing that now is the time where individuals need to check and improve their different parts of their lives. Now, why right now? Because why in 2023 do we have to check ourselves? It's because 2023 is the largest challenge of personal faith within Providence. Personal faith, your personal faith is going to be challenged the most during 2023. You need to check and iron out your misdoings. Now, a good mental exercise to really realize this situation is this. A good way to think about this is that our faith is armor, okay? And 2023 is a sword. So, a person is trying to stab you. They go for the swing, but you don't worry because you have body armor, right? The old style, iron armor. You have the body armor on, so you're not that worried, right? But the second the blade hits the armor, you realize that there's a crack in the foundation of the armor. Now, it's not much of a big opening, but it's just enough for the stabber to stab you in a place that is fatal, right? So, using this mental exercise, we can realize that, the person is Satan, right? Satan will use every crack in your faith, in your armor, to make you stumble in 2023. Now, there are many things that can be a crack, right? Were you too reliant on people? That's a crack, right? Do you have any sexual sin? That's a crack. Do you have a lack of connection with the Trinity during this time? That is a crack. Now, right now is the time to pick up our welding torches and start fixing our armor. Now, if you have the realization that Satan is working extra time right now because of the historical importance of 2023, then we are going to work extra time to make sure that we will go until the end. How do you make sure that we go until the end? We need to work on ourselves and on our faith without rest. Now, in the next podcast, I'll tell you the things and the measures I'm going through right now that I am personally making so I can go until the end. Now, today, I had something amazing, just amazing happen. I was reading a book and I found some advice, just a random advice that I felt 100% God really guided me to stumble into this information. Now, this information and advice is from the book, The 48 Laws of Power. Now, this book is a very powerful, it's a very powerful book about the workplace and how to climb the social and corporate ladder. Now, that begs the question, right? How does this book, the 48 Laws of Power, how does this book about power and about gaining power in a corporate environment give me advice about my faith? Now, it is Law 18. Law 18 states, do not build a fortress or fortresses around yourself. Isolation is dangerous. Now, I'll read you the summary of this law. The world is dangerous and enemies are everywhere. Everyone has to protect themselves. A fortress seems the safest, but isolation exposes you to more dangers than it protects you from. It cuts you off from valuable information. It makes you conspicuous and an easy target. Better to circulate among people, find allies, and mingle. You are shielded from your enemies by the crowd. Let's say you're a king and, you want to build a fortress. Fortresses itself are designed to protect you, but fortresses can actually cut you off from valuable help and cuts into your flexibility as a person. Now, when you build a fortress around yourself, you are vulnerable because you're confined to small spaces. But there are also risks of the plague and contagious diseases, right? Now, let's see why this is just huge advice for me, right? So the first thing after, when I was so overwhelmed with all the news and all the developments in Provi, the first thing I wanted to do is isolate. I wanted to build a fortress and isolate myself and just, be by myself. Good thing I did not do this. When I got my vacation, the first thing I wanted to do is I went to play and have fun with my family. Because when you build a fortress and isolate yourself, you cut yourself from valuable help. This is the best thing to do right now, is to be next to people that really cares about you. Make sure that when you're next to people, with your family, or when you're next to people that really care about you, make sure that you're gaining strength from being around them, right? You don't want to be losing strength from being around them, but you want to be gaining strength. And when you gain strength, you also want to make sure that you're giving strength to other people, right? To the people that really matter. Now, right now, it's more clear to me that right now is not the time to be alone. Because if you're alone, it can feel like you're against the world, right? It is you and maybe the Trinity against the world. And that can be very, very daunting. But however, this is not the case. We have our brothers and sisters. We have our friends. We have our fellow Providence members. And we have Sonship and the Trinity and Jesus on our side. So that is enough. That I realize that this is enough for me to go until the end. And it is enough for me to go until 2023. So please don't isolate yourself and face your issues head on. Now, I hope this podcast really helps you to wrap up this week and give you something to think about during this weekend. Because weekends are also an amazing time to just settle down and have a good time. And whatever happens today, or whatever happens next week, or whatever happens next year, we will stay until the end. I truly believe that. And if we're constantly improving ourselves, if we're constantly improving our faiths, then I believe that we will stay until the end. Thank you everyone for listening, and to everyone who are changing and improving themselves to become closer to the Lord, and to those who are going until the end. Let's walk this path together. Peace. Bye-bye.
And a big amen to Daniel for another wonderful, awesome episode of Until the End. Hope you guys really, really enjoyed that just as I have. He's doing such an awesome job. I was hoping he would come visit me over here in Malaysia, but he couldn't get that much time off of his work. But super, super thankful for all that he's done. And I hope that you guys continue, encourage him, leave some comments for him. He really is someone who's deserving of it and someone doing an amazing job over there in like the epicenter of where all the craziness is happening. All right, everyone, that's it. This is today's Friday podcast. Hope you guys really enjoyed it just as I have. Have an amazing weekend, and we'll see you guys again on Monday on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know. I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know.